Hey y'all, hi. So today I'm going to be sharing 5 minimalist makeup tricks that I use all the time, but that I feel like I rarely ever mention on camera. So these are little guidelines that I realize that I'm always following, especially when I'm applying a face of makeup just to go about my day, not necessarily for filming. Keeping it simple, wanting to look good, look polished, not look like I'm wearing too much makeup. I'm starting with a bare face except for a little bit of base. So I'm going to be going through all 5 of these with you and applying the makeup as we go. If this is your first time to my channel, I hope you enjoyed the video. And if you do, I hope you'll consider subscribing to my channel. My name is Hannah. I make videos about fashion and beauty. I try not to promote overspending. I love talking about technique as much as I love reviewing product. This is a great video to start with if you are new. And let us now go ahead and get into the meat of this video. Okay, first up, brows. There are a lot of different ways to do your brows, and I like doing my brows in a variety of ways. I don't always do them the same way. Sometimes I will put a bunch of fiber-building brow gel into them, try to make them really thick and full and fluffed up and wild. Lately, I've been into a little bit simpler, more sculpted, more refined of a brow look, and the principle that I'm going to share with you now is something that I've been thinking about a lot as I pursue that aesthetic. This is also really straightforward and I think a pretty widespread way of applying products to the brows, a little bit of pencil and then a little bit of gel. I am using the Kimiko product, so this is the Superfine Eyebrow Pencil in the shade Coffee. And the thing that I've been thinking about lately that I don't believe I've mentioned ever on camera is the idea of focusing my efforts with the pencil on defining the line underneath the brow. So rather than going in and just like creating a bunch of hair strokes all over the brow, and also rather than going in and blocking out the top of the brow and kind of trying to define the entire shape all the way around the edges, I'm just gently and lightly basically drawing a line to define the boundary between my brow bone and my brow. Spending the most time there, really putting effort into the shape there, and then filling in empty spots in the rest of the brow, but for the most part, just letting it kind of all spring from there, kind of all grow from that line. I will often elongate the tail of the brow a little bit, but I'm doing that kind of as an extension of the soft line that I've been drawing underneath the brow or at the very base of the brow. So I don't start too far in, I don't start too close to my nose. I'm kind of letting the front part of my brows just be how they are, and then just gently starting to define that underneath shape, filling that underneath line in all the way to the tail, and then elongating the tail a little bit as an extension of that line. So that's how my brows look, having done that and not having put in any gel. And before I've even added the gel, I can kind of see, a couple places where they're maybe just a little bit thinner, looking a little uneven because of that. So, really gently filling in those places, but not trying to do any other intense sculpting because I'll have so much power to sculpt when I add the gel. And that line underneath just does so much to define and refine everything while still keeping it really minimal, keeping it from going overboard, keeping my brows from suddenly looking like extremely painted on or super made up, blocky and defined. So they look refined and sculpted and they're framing the face, but it still works with a minimal makeup look. That's what I'm after. And then going in with a gel, as much as I love a brushed up brow, I'm finding the thing that works best for this kind of clean, minimal shape is to not fight the natural direction of the hairs too much. I'm brushing the brush with the gel in it pretty much in the direction that the hairs are naturally going and just urging them a little bit to fill in any empty or thin spots, urging them to sort of get themselves together as they taper towards the tail and not trying to brush them up so that they go higher than my natural brow because there isn't actually hair up there, so that causes empty spots to appear at the top of the brow that I would then have to go and fill in with more pencil, and I'm trying to concentrate the use of the pencil underneath, like on the bottom edge. So they're ending up a little bit thinner, a little bit more delicate than they usually are, less filled in. I've used less product. And to me, all of this springs from that one principle of sort of lightly drawing a line at the very base of the brow, at least having that be the starting point. Okay, let's move on to blush. Blush placement. This is something that I will mention from time to time when I'm applying blush on camera, but I feel like the importance of it or the frequency with which I think about this technique is disproportionate to the infrequency with which I actually mention it on camera. This is a guideline that I follow almost every time I apply blush. I mean, if I'm doing something a little bit more dramatic, maybe I'll break this rule, but this is like the starting point. And when it comes to a super wearable, everyday minimal makeup look, I find this particularly important. So I'm using the Surratt Artiste Liquid Blush today. This is a product that I'm currently testing, but I really like it and I've been wearing it a lot. The shade is called Barbe a Papa, and one of the things that I like about it, especially for a simple makeup look, is that it applies really well with the fingers. You don't need a brush or a tool for it. The guiding principle here, the trick, the technique, is to keep the blush on the outside edge of the face, especially the center of it where you first start applying it. Instead of centering that application underneath the eyes, which I think is what a lot of people do, I place my blush basically between the outer corner of my eye and my hairline. If you're not used to doing this, it might seem really, really high up and far out, like really close to the edges of your face instead of on your cheeks. And I can't tell you how many times I've seen someone, especially like a friend or a family member who hasn't spent a ton of time with makeup, go in to apply blush and instinctively put it just smack dab in the middle of the cheek right underneath the eye. It's not as natural a place for a flush. It's not as flattering a place. It doesn't really lift and sculpt the face there. And as you can see, as I'm applying this and spreading it out, the color will drift in, right? So the softened edges of the color will end up drifting across, maybe to the halfway point, like maybe to the point that's directly underneath the pupil. But the majority of the color is concentrated basically around the edges of the face, like up on or even a little bit behind the cheekbone. And for me, as you can see, this means blending the blush pretty much all the way into my hairline or like up onto my temple a little bit. I never think about this. I always apply blush this way, but because I've observed that it's not necessarily intuitive for everyone, really wanted to include it in this video, be extremely specific and articulate about it, and basically call your attention to it. I also like to put a little bit of blush on the tip of my nose. That's a matter of preference rather than a technique necessarily. It's something that I've been enjoying doing, especially with this color. But when it comes to blush placement, the important thing is edges of the face. Okay, next up, this might be my favorite one. This is something that I do constantly when I'm applying some sort of glossy cheek product, a highlighting product, and I'm putting on a pretty simple makeup look. I want it to be polished and pulled together and flattering, but in that really chic, elegant, simple way. To demonstrate this, I'm using another Surratt product. This is the Torch Lumiere in Rose Diamante, and I'm in the middle of testing these Surratt products, and I've been loving wearing this one. I've been especially loving wearing it in the way that I'm about to demonstrate. So the trick is to take whatever highlighting cream or stick or powder or gloss or whatever it is that you're using, to take it up onto your eyelids, and more specifically, your brow bone. It can go all over the eyelids depending on the product, but you know, for some of us, when something's on our lids, it can crease. So that's more of an optional thing. The real heart of the execution of this technique is to cover your brow bone in whatever you're putting on your cheeks and to connect it. Connect the application of that sheer, shiny product from your brow bone all the way down onto your cheeks so that there's basically a field of gloss or a field of shine that covers the brow bone, part of the temple, and the cheek, all in one big, roughly C-shaped area. So we end up with highlight, not just here on the cheekbone, not just here on the brow bone or the brow bone and the lid, but also here on this beautiful part of the face. I think that some people shy away from putting any highlighting product of any kind there because that's where our crow's feet show up, and there's a concern sometimes that a highlighting product will make it look more wrinkly there. It depends on the highlighter. That's my experience. I think a powder highlight or metallic highlight is more likely to call attention to creases in that area. Some cream highlighters do the opposite though. They do this kind of magical job of sort of blurring, especially if you have a more glazing or like waxing effect cheek product like the Jones Road Miracle Balm. It will actually light up that area I think this one's pretty great as well. It will actually light up that area while sort of reflecting light in a way that blurs the effect of those creases. So if you've never even tried this on that principle, maybe experiment with the different kinds of highlighters that you have and see if you are surprised that you find one that actually does work. Because when it works, it's really lovely and so simple. I mean, that's the thing. It lights up so much of the face. It really refines the face, but it's seamless. It's not too complicated. It all hangs together. I often find that when I do this, it takes away the desire to apply all that much more makeup to those parts of my face or even to the rest of my face because it just looks so good on its own. Okay, mascara. This might be kind of obvious. I don't know. It's just, again, something that I know about, that I think about consciously sometimes, unconsciously a lot of the time. When I'm applying mascara, something that I'm aware that I do, that I just do so automatically that I fear I have forgotten ever to give voice to. So I'm going to give voice to it today using the L'Oreal Voluminous Brown Balm, this really interesting drugstore mascara. I actually like this look without mascara, but I want to show you this technique and talk to you about it. So here's the thing that I do always when I apply mascara. I don't just coat my lashes in the product and the pigment. I don't just try to kind of get it into the roots of the lashes and brush it through to make them as full and as long as possible. I don't just focus on length and volume, which is, what mascara is always promising to give, what a lot of us want from mascara in addition to the darkening color. I don't just do that. I also use the mascara wand to sculpt my lashes, to shape the direction in which they go. For a lot of people who are already doing something like this, it has to do with curling, trying to get the lashes to sort of lift and curve around and hold a curl. But the thing I'm talking about and showing you today is that I always use the tip of the mascara wand to encourage the lashes on the very outer edge of my eye to swoop outward, kind of in like a cat eye shape. Their natural direction is just sort of forward, like out and up, out away from my eye. And I use the opportunity of covering them with something gunky that is then about to dry and hold them in shape. I use the opportunity to change the direction of those lashes in the outer corner of my eye to pull them out and up and give the eye an ever so slight elongated and cat eye effect because of the shape of those lashes. Often because I'll first apply like a coat all over all of the lashes on both eyes and then go back in with the tip of the mascara wand and sculpt and tease and sort of pull those outer corner lashes out. Often I'll end up applying basically a second or a third coat of mascara only to those outer lashes. It's like the lashes on the outer third of the eye, maybe even the outer quarter of the eye, just that little tuft of outer corner lashes. They'll end up getting more coats so that the mascara is more concentrated there, which also enhances that sculpting and slightly elongating effect. So today I've left mascara off of my bottom lashes. That's just a choice I'm making to keep the look simpler. That's not necessarily related to the trick. It's just something that I do sometimes. The sculpting is all about the outer corner of the upper lashes. And lastly, lips, lip makeup. I'm just using a bullet lipstick today. This is Merit Baby. This is my favorite lipstick formula. But funnily enough, this technique works for anything you put on your lips. Just a little bit of lip liner, a more heavy-duty lipstick like a liquid lipstick of some kind, or a liquid lip cream. It also works with lip gloss. I do this when I apply lip gloss. I think about this when I apply it. And it's sort of a twofold trick. One thing which I think is maybe more commonly discussed or is something that I've mentioned from time to time is to overline a little bit, but just do it in the center of the mouth. Let the product drift down over the rim, the vermilion border of your lips, sort of in the center third of the bottom lip and in the center of the top lip, rather than doing an intense full coverage of the vermilion border overline all around the entire mouth. This makes application much quicker and easier and more controlled. It makes it much less likely that you'll go overboard and need to wipe it all off and start again, or that you'll end up feeling like you have this really intense, super made up lipsticky mouth on an otherwise minimal makeup face. But you still get the flattering effect of slight overlining. You still get the benefit of that. And you know, I will often use a tool to soften the edges of lip products, especially cream bullet lipsticks like this. I love using a little lip brush and just softly blurring the edge. Again, focusing most of the overlining at the very center of the mouth, but blurring a soft line across the vermilion border all around. You can also use a Q-tip for this. I'll sometimes use a Q-tip to clean up the edges, and it'll work as well as a blurring tool if you don't have a lip brush. So I apply lipstick on camera all the time, and in theory, I demonstrate this all the time. I just don't know how often I articulate that I'm thinking about overlining the center of my lip and not really the rest. And the other thing that I think about quite a bit, and that I don't think I've ever talked about on camera, is what to do with the Cupid's bow. And it's kind of adjacent to this overlining in the center principle, but I think it's worth being really specific about this because it's a choice that I make. And that is the choice to round the Cupid's bow with makeup instead of defining it. Now, lip shape is really personal, and there are some people whose most flattering lip shape is a more defined Cupid's bow, especially depending on the shape of your lips. So I'm not necessarily saying that this is universal. It's just something that I do because I have a sort of in-between Cupid's bow. It's like a slight dip, but it's not super defined, but it's also not super rounded. So I could kind of go either way. I could enhance that sort of M shape of my lip with product every time I apply makeup and make my Cupid's bow more pronounced and make that shape of the lip, that slightly vintage shape is what it would look like on me, make it more pronounced. I could be doing that every time I apply makeup. I could have been doing that this whole time. But instead, the lip shape that I have chosen is a more rounded upper lip. And what that means is that I'm basically filling in my Cupid's bow with a little bit of makeup every time and making it look like my top lip goes straight across and around instead of dipping down. I've chosen it because it makes the lip look a little bit fuller. It's like part of my daily routine, and I've never talked about it on camera. So I wanted to close out this video by sharing that with you. And that's it. That is the finished look with all of these principles coming together. One, focusing on defining the line that's underneath the brow rather than worrying about all of the rest of the shape. Two, concentrating blush on the outer edge of the face outside of the corners of the eyes. Three, connecting your brow bone, temples, and cheeks with one big glazed plane of highlighting product. Four, using mascara to sculpt the lashes, particularly to tease those outer corner lashes out a little bit more. And five, overlining the lips ever so slightly, just in the centers of the lips rather than all the way around, whether you're using a lipstick, gloss, tint, lip liner, whatever it is you're using. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that this was useful. Again, if you are unsubscribed, if you're new, or if you've just been watching as an unsubscribed person, I hope you'll consider subscribing. I appreciate you all though, even those of you who watch unsubscribed, especially those of you who are always liking and commenting my videos. Thank you all for being here, and don't forget to take extra good care of yourself so that you can be the most effective version of yourself as you do your work in the world.